Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Pandemic Rapid Response, designed by Kane Klenko and published by Z-Man Games, who helped sponsor this video. With natural disasters on the rise, the world's nations have united to create a crisis response unit. Outfitted with an advanced plane and the necessary supplies, it's now a race against time, as you and your team work to be a first response unit to help save humanity. So, join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, place the board representing the interior of the plane in the center of the play area, with this waste marker on the first space of the waste track here. These are the 5 supply rooms, and you'll put 4 crates matching their color in each one. And this over here is the headquarters, and you put the sand timer and 3 of these time tokens there, with the remaining 6 time tokens placed on the opposite side. These are the city cards, and each has a unique name matching one of the ones found on the outside edge of the board. Shuffle them, and then draw one, and find that city on the board. Here it is here. And then place this plane representing your current location into the space there, and the card that you drew is then removed from the game. Now draw 2 more cities and place them face up on the outside of the board by their matching locations. These represent infected cities that need your medical supplies. Deal 3 more cards without looking at them into a face-down pile here, and then return all remaining city cards unseen back to the box. These are the roll cards, and for your first game, they recommend removing the director, the recycler, and the supply specialist as labeled here in their top corners. But either way, shuffle the rolls and then deal 1 face up to each player. We'll be setting up for 2 players, and any undealt rolls are then returned to the box. Each player now takes any 1 pawn along with a matching colored dice and reference card. You'll then check the symbol here in the top right corner of your roll, and this will match one of the rooms on the plane. For example, this one shows a green food can, which is this room here. So you'll then take your pawn and place it in that room. This is your starting position. All other pawns, dice, and cards can be returned to the box, and then the player who last traveled on a plane is picked to be the first player. Or you can choose randomly. And that's the setup. In Pandemic Rapid Response, you and the other players must work to gather together supplies and then deliver them to cities in need, all while the timer is counting down. City cards on the outside edge of the board show symbols representing the supplies that you and your team must deliver to those locations. And you'll collect those items from the rooms in the plane, add them to the cargo bay area here, then fly to the indicated location by moving this ship, and then have someone open the cargo bay doors and release those supplies into the grateful city below. And all of this is done in real time. Players will take their own turns, but as they do, the sand timer will be counting down, and if time runs out before you deliver all the required supplies, you lose. At the start of the game, you'll flip the sand timer over, and then turns will be taken starting with the first player and going clockwise around and around the table. Now, during this video, I'm going to pause the sand timer, but we'll explain a little bit later what happens when the time runs out. At the start of a turn, the current player will take all of their colored dice from in front of themselves, including any that are on their roll card. Now, at the beginning of the game, you won't have any here, but if you did, you'd collect them, and then you roll all of those dice. As we'll see later, you'll often start your turn with some of your dice already on the board, and those ones you do not get to roll at this time. They have to stay on the board. Now, with the dice that you do have, during your turn, you can use each one to perform an action, which will either move it to the board or to your roll card. You can repeat actions and do them in any order, but once used, a die cannot be used again that turn. However, twice per turn at any time, you can re-roll any number of your unused dice to get new results. For example, I might use these 2 dice, then decide I don't like these results, re-rolling them. Then I might spend this die and want to keep these 2, but I don't like this one, so I'll use my second re-roll to get a new result. For the rest of my turn, I would now have to work with what I have. Now though, let's discuss all the ways in which dice can be used, starting with movement. To do this, spend any one of your dice, no matter its symbol, sending it to your roll card, and then move your pawn from the room it's in to an adjacent one through an open door. Now, if I want to move further, I just have to spend more dice. There are a total of 7 rooms in the ship, not counting the headquarters, which doesn't have open doors and therefore cannot be entered. Another action you can take is to fly the plane. And although what we see on the board is the inside of the plane, this piece here represents its actual position along its flight path to various cities. You can take this action no matter where your pawn is. Just spend a die showing the plane symbol and send it to your roll card, and then move the plane to an adjacent space along the flight path. It doesn't matter which way the plane is facing, so I could turn it around and fly in this direction if I want to, and for each of these symbols that I spend, I can keep moving the plane. Another way to use your dice is to assign them to the spaces for them in a room where your pawn is currently located. And to do this, you'll always fill in the spots starting from the leftmost empty one and then going in the direction of the arrows. The dice that you place there must match the icons shown. And if two or more of those icons are grouped within a box, then you must place all of those dice at once as a single group. Right now I only have 2 power, so I could not place them here. And this is a time when I might want to use any rerolls I have to try to get the results I need. Let's say I re-rolled all of these again and I got these results. Well, now I could place these 3 as a group here. Once you put dice onto the board, they're locked and cannot be taken back until the room has been activated, which is another action we'll learn about in a moment. I have another die and I could assign it here, but if I use up too many of my dice in this way without a plan, I may limit my actions that I can do on a later turn. This is where working with the other players and communicating can be really helpful. Because yes, the more dice you assign to a track, the more powerful it will be, as we'll see later. But a single player doesn't have to do all the work themselves. This blue player may choose not to put this die here because they don't want to lock up too many of their dice at once. And instead, on a future turn, this player may spend a couple of dice to move over to this room, and then they can contribute their dice to the other groups in this track. All 5 of these supply rooms work the same way. They just require different symbols and have different ways to group the dice. The spaces on the track of the recycling room are a bit different. They don't require specific symbols. Instead, each die that you place here must have a symbol different than any other symbol already in the room. So now, the blue player could not add any of these dice, as these symbols are already there. The cargo bay is also unique, as it only has 1 space for a single die, and that must show the airplane symbol. Alright, now we come to the final type of action you can take, which is called activating a room. And to do this, you don't have to spend any dice. Instead, your pawn has to be in the room you wish to activate, and there must be enough dice already there to resolve its effect, which is shown on the pointed ends of those track spaces. For example, in this room, these 2 pointed ends don't have any special symbols. That means there's nothing to gain here, so we would not be able to activate this room yet. However, if a die was here, well, now we see a cube symbol. These represent how many crates you'll get to take from that supply room. So in this case, we'd be able to take 1. If another die was here, then we get to collect 2, and this would let us take 3. When you activate a room, you must resolve the most powerful effect you've completed. So here, I would have to collect 2 crates. Now, if there were fewer in the room than what you were owed, you just take as many as you can. When supplies like this are gained, move them directly to these empty spaces in the cargo bay, filling them up in any order. Later in the game, if there's not enough room for the crates you just collected, you may take less than what you are owed or return other crates already here back to their related rooms to make space. When you activate any one of the supply rooms to move crates, it also generates waste. So after you move the crates to the cargo bay, you then roll all of the dice in the just activated room, even if you took fewer crates than what you were allowed to. For each result that shows a circle around the icon, like we see here, you then move the waste marker 1 space towards this end of the track, and if the marker ever lands on this space, the players all lose. Now, assuming you haven't lost, all of those rolled dice are then returned to each player's roll card. To help prevent waste from ending the game, a player in the recycling center can activate it. They then move the marker here a number of spaces back towards the recycle symbol based on the value to the right of the furthest die that was placed here. So -2 in this case. Then all of these dice are returned to the related player's roll cards. Finally, we have the cargo bay. If a player is here and there's a die on this space, and the plane is on a location with a card, and all the supplies shown on the card are located in the cargo spaces, then this player can open the doors and make the delivery. To do this, remove all of the crates from the cargo bay that are shown on the location that you're delivering to, and return them to the various supply rooms. Then take a time token from this supply and place it in your headquarters. If there are no time tokens left here, then you don't get one, but either way, you then remove the completed card from the game and return the die here to that player's roll card. And those are all of the possible actions. When you cannot or do not want to do anything else on your turn ends and play passes to the person on your left. They then take any dice in front of them, including on their roll card, roll them, and then get started. Speaking of the roll cards, each will have a unique ability that player can use during the game. Just read the effect printed here and follow its instructions. We won't go over each one, but you'll find them explained in more detail on the back of the rulebook if you have any questions. With that, we understand what you can do on your turn, but remember, these countries need your supplies and they need them fast. To represent that, the sand timer will always be running and it will last 2 minutes. As soon as it runs out, pause the current turn and discard one time token from the headquarters, returning it to the box. Then, if any cards remain here, draw the top one and place it beside the matching city on the flight path. Whether a card was here to reveal or not, you then immediately flip the sand timer and resume play. You cannot strategize or otherwise take a break while the game is paused. If the timer would ever run out and there are no time tokens left in your headquarters, the players immediately lose. No matter how many tokens might still be in your supply. But remember, each time you successfully make a delivery, you'll gain a new token from here to add to your headquarters. And that's the only way to extend your time. And when these run out, there'll be no more to collect. That said, as soon as players have delivered supplies to all of the city cards, so that none are remaining in this pile or along the flight path, they immediately win. So that's your ultimate objective. But remember, new cards from this deck are only revealed as the sand timer runs out. So in the game that we set up, which had 3 cards in this deck, that means you'll have to run through the sand timer at least 3 times before you see all of the locations that you'll need to deliver to. Once players have more experience with the game, you can adjust the difficulty during setup to change how many cards start face up and how many are in the headquarters by using this chart found in the rulebook. Also, on any difficulty, you can choose to introduce these crisis cards to the game. Just shuffle them during the setup and put them in a face-down pile somewhere near the headquarters. Now, whenever the sand timer runs out, after you've drawn and placed a new city card as usual, you'll then draw and resolve a crisis card. And you'll do this even if the city deck itself is empty. Now, based on the symbol here in the bottom right-hand corner, this crisis will be resolved in one of 3 possible ways. This symbol means the effect is immediate and only happens once. After following its instructions, simply remove it from the game. If you draw a crisis card and it shows this temporary effect symbol, that means once it's revealed, you'll place it here where its effect will remain active until the next time that the timer runs out, at which point you'll just remove it from the game. Though you will still draw and reveal any city card underneath of it as usual. If you see this symbol, it means it's a delivery crisis, and you'll place it on top of one of the current face-up delivery locations as instructed. It will remain here, requiring that you first resolve this delivery as its own action before you can deliver supplies to the card below it. In this case, it means you would need to get the plane here and then deliver 1 vaccine supply. Then this card would be removed from the game. While these are in play, you're still allowed to make deliveries to other cards around the board first if you'd prefer, but to win, you'll need to complete all deliveries, including these crisis ones. It's also possible as time goes on that more of these will be revealed and stacked on top of each other. If so, you will only deliver to the topmost location and have to work your way down. These crisis cards certainly add more surprises and challenges to your games, so again, you might want to wait until you've played a couple of times before you include them, unless you're feeling especially adventurous. Otherwise, that's how you play Pandemic Rapid Response. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that bell icon so you get a notification whenever we post a new video. But until next time, thanks for watching.